The NCAA is finally fighting back, proposing penalties for the shadow portal. What is the shadow portal? We're going to define that next, right here on the Portal Podcast.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We are brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork will be needed. Vanilla cake flavor, caffeinated kick, and no sugar. It is party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon. We're going to be discussing whether or not the NCAA has done a good thing by at least starting the process and presenting ideas at their latest meeting on how they can combat what is the shadow portal. And we're going to talk about that throughout the show today. It's the most important topic by a mile in any which direction you want to go with the NCAA and college football. So I'll get into the shadow portal at the beginning of the show, but overall, the NCAA started the process. I'm going to answer this right now. Yes, they did well. I'll go into more specifics later in the show. How will the penalties hold up in the court of law? There are going to be some proposed penalties the NCAA is going to levy, if you will, at teams that accept transfers in the spring window. And they are extreme. Like, I did not see this coming. By the way, hats off for even proposing some of these penalties. And again, I'll go through them in just a moment. But can they hold up in court? I have some questions. I'm curious what fans in the chat will say, and those that listen later on or watch on YouTube, please comment as well. But to start, if you take nothing else from this podcast, I'm impressed because the shadow portal is a very complex topic with a lot of subpoints. So I'm going to have to go through it. But if you take nothing else, the fact that the NCAA is even coming up with anything to try to prevent players from transferring just whenever they want, and really not having any form of guidance was the first step. The NCAA did a good thing with that, and they've got to get a formal proposal passed that's coming up next. It's expected to pass, but you can't do it unless you start. And this is the first time in I don't even know when that I'm openly happy with the NCAA. I honestly don't remember the last time. So to that end, well done. So what is the shadow portal? That is the term that has been thrown out. Basically, this is what happens. And I'm told that several players are looking to do this. There's one school in particular, I'm told 2 are ready to leave already as soon as spring is done, barring something unforeseen, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what it means. You unenroll in spring, so you're outside the portal window. As a reminder, the 2nd of January through the 16th, that was the portal. That was your one shot. You unenroll, go to another school and enroll, and eventually, I'm a walk-on. It's trying to use that as a facade. It's not true. You're transferring. We all know it. They're trying to skirt the rules, play the gray area because they want to be able to transfer whenever they want. Okay. Here's the problem for the NCAA. This is still the one issue that I don't know when this will get fixed. Remember, no college athlete is currently deemed an employee. If they were, it would be totally different. They'd have basically a mandate, a rule book. You have to do this, and they could just hammer them if they didn't do it. They're not employees. Why aren't they? Because they would make a lot more money, and they want to keep the money. Let's just be honest. The NCAA is not going to admit that either, but that's reality. To that end, if they do it, they could still transfer. They're not going to be denied any of the following. You could still go walk on somewhere. We'll get into more details. There's a bunch of subpoints. Unenroll, go somewhere else, you can still do it. You won't be penalized as a player. Key here. There are a lot of subpoints, and this is complex. However, if you do it, the school will get the following. This is the big kahuna in the room because, again, this is the proposal. It's been out there. Pete Nakos and a whole bunch of different people have talked about this. Here we go. The NCAA is proposing the following. The head coach would be prohibited from all football, recruiting, and on-field coaching and administrative duties, team meetings, etc., through the 6th contest of the season. So if you have a player that transfers and plays, you're not penalizing the player, you're going to penalize the coach. That's point one. Point two, the school would be fined 20%, keyword again, 20% of its football budget if one of these players, again, transfers in spring, aka the shadow portal. And then third, this bullet point states the school would be required to reduce the number of roster spots by 5 for the next season, regardless of the head coach's employment status at the school. So let me break this down one by one. Again, you can't really do anything to the player because they are not employees. Coaches are. They're employees under the guidance of the NCAA. With that being stated, there are going to be penalties levied against those coaches if they allow this. Now, to be clear, there's one grade that I don't have an opinion on. What if a kid just decides, you know what, I don't want to be at this school. I'm not going to play next year. I'm just going to sit out. I'm going to enroll somewhere else. I'm guessing they would just let that ride because that's just old school transfer where you sit out a year. But otherwise, anybody that enrolls somewhere else, if they go and participate in any football activities, they're probably going to get this. Number two, the fine of 20%. I don't know where they came up with that number. My guess that will be mitigated to somewhere between 10 and 15%. But still, that's a big chunk. Remember, they're getting allocated $22 million. And whatever percent of that they're going to use for football, I guess they've got to distinguish it to the NCAA each year. So if they use 80% of that, that's still close to 20 million. 20% of that would be $4 million that you would just be writing a check to the NCAA. That's pretty substantial. And then finally, the third point, reducing the scholarship number, you're hosed the next year. So you would cost yourself the current season because you're not going to be an elite team losing your coach for 6 games, and he's not even allowed to go to team meetings or anything else. That wouldn't work. And then on top of it, you're going to be down 5 scholarships the next year. That's really difficult to overcome. Basically, what they're doing is saying, we know we can't stop you from transferring, and you're more than welcome to go get your education somewhere else. That is your right, but you ain't playing, because if you do, the school will be hindered. That's what this comes down to. I think it is a brilliant move to propose this, and there's still the beginning stages of it. Maybe it doesn't work out completely. There's going to have to be some change. Maybe they'll add some things. The NCAA got it right for at least starting the process. If you take nothing else, take that 1 point. You got to start. What else are you going to do? You can't just have players, and I'm pro player in general, but they can't dictate whatever rule they want whenever they want. There must be a standard set of rules for all schools, not just the teams with more money that are throwing out cash through backdoor channels and agents. That does not work. So with that, I'm going to go into the chat for part 2, and we'll also talk about whether or not this can be challenged in different ways. I forget the guy's name, but a Miami professor and a guy that's super pro player, he's probably involved with agencies or something. I don't know. Says that it won't work because you're taking away their academic right. I'm like, give me a break. You can still enroll somewhere else. You just can't play. I'm going to get into all that next right here on the Portal Podcast.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Today's show was brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, here's an opportunity from FanDuel because they are having their own NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost inside the FanDuel app or on FanDuel.com on any NBA future bet, and you're automatically going to be launched into the opportunity to get that NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, two people, flights, tickets, the whole shebang with FanDuel. So if you love going into this time of year, trying to figure out which team is going to win it, which person is going to be the Finals MVP, whatever it may be, check it out with FanDuel. It is a very simple process. So again, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and get entered for a trip to the finals. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Take your game to the next level with the Everydayer Club. Down in the description below, there is a link that will define more, but here's the number one reason you should. Your audio feed will be no ads, $5 a month or $50 for the year. Up to you. You don't get any ads wherever you go, grocery store, long drive, at the gym, going for a run. You have no ads. Check out the Everydayer Club down below. So here's how it works in terms of my concerns. This is just coming out yesterday, really got a hit in the airwaves with this shadow portal. So I'll have more thoughts about this over time, but what will be challenged? As I noted right before the break, I think there are a couple of things. Number one, there's going to be somebody try to argue, and again, I forget the guy's name. He's a professor at the University of Miami. I saw it on X. He said, "Oh, this is failure. They didn't do it. Their lawyers didn't do a good job. You're neglecting the players because this holds back their academic." No, it doesn't. They can still transfer and go to another school. That is not being held against them. That is garbage. And you want to say, "Oh, they wouldn't be on scholarship." They could go on scholarship somewhere else. You could still transfer in the spring. You just have to sit out. Your academics will not be hindered. That's not going to hold up in court. I'm not a lawyer. He allegedly is, but I don't need to be one for that. That's not going to work. Not at the highest levels. That's too fraudulent. Everybody knows they're not transferring for academic reasons. They're not. They're transferring for football. And if this, by the way, I just going to throw this out off the top of my head, this same kind of thing, if it ever gets that way with basketball, I don't even know the portal windows for basketball. I don't pay attention to it enough. I just watch the games. It's probably the same thing. There has to be some kind of set standard. And anytime you have a big box answer to something, any kind of bureaucracy, there are always going to be a few people that it doesn't benefit. There is no such thing as 100% everybody is going to fit into the bureaucracy of a major institution, government, whatever. That's just life. It sucks, but that's not going to change. So if there's a special exception for some reason, a kid's mother gets moved across the country, she's in the military, and that's his last family member or something, okay, maybe they make exceptions for that. But outside of it, I don't see any reason for this not to work. I'm sure there's going to be a lawyer that comes up with something for billable hours to try to challenge the NCAA and or schools. They may try to do it at the state level. They may try to do something at the federal level, but state in particular gets really touchy because if you rule against the NCAA, you're probably going to get hammered as a school. Not they can hammer the court, but you're probably going to get hammered in other ways because they're going to force the conference to come down on you because you can't have one conference member. Let's just use the SEC. The whole Tennessee situation with NIL, if you haven't looked into it, it's worth your time. It's fascinating. They've got a wall in their state says they can't be hindered in any way by any limit to how much NIL they want to spend, which is exactly what the NCAA is doing. So how that works going forward, I don't know, but it's pretty fascinating. Here are some questions that I have overall, and just to try to help solidify and answer anything, I'll put these up just for a sec. I'll read them, then I'm going to go into the chat, then I'll come back to these again. What if a player withdraws from a school and enrolls at a new school? Do penalties still apply? That is exactly what this is about. I just wanted to make that blatant. They're trying to make it so kids don't just accidentally walk on and all of a sudden they've got a scholarship a little later and go to football. So number one is just the baseline. Number two, NCAA avoiding directly going after players attempting to transfer. Again, this is just because they're not employees. So they go after the school to hinder the opportunity for players because that way you get something out of this. Like the school is not going to benefit from cheating and stealing players, which is exactly the problem here. And that way the player, if you want to transfer, you can still, again, you can go academically and do what you want. But if you play, the school is going to get drilled. Number 3, will any form of the NCAA's decision to penalize teams be challenged in court? It's a lock. They'll come up with something. Trust me. Number 4, will the majority of schools be in favor of the NCAA's proposed penalties? 100%. And here's why. Not 100% of schools, but 100%. It'll be over 50%. And it'll get voted in some capacity because there are only a handful of schools that really have the money to steal guys consistently. The majority of schools and pretty much the entire G6 is going to vote against anything not being in this realm. They want it to be like this. And some of the schools in the P4 will vote for this as well. Number 5, is there any way a player could still transfer, assuming these rules go into effect? Yes, you still can without penalty if you do not, this is my understanding, play the next year. Like if you set out that season, it wouldn't be any big deal. I don't know the whole gray area, whether or not you're going to work out with the school and all that. If you're never going to play that year, you don't suit, I don't think it would matter. But I'm guessing they still may go yes on that because they don't want somebody trying to steal somebody. They only want you to transfer in the portal window. So that's the gray area. I don't know for sure, but those are pretty interesting questions. All right, let's get into the chat and have a little fun with this. We'll start it, and after the break, we'll finish the chat. Salty, the first question was really good. I wasn't aware of transfers outside the portal window. When did all this start? Is there a case that finally pushed the NCAA into action? Xavier Lucas last year with Miami. He was a starting corner for the Canes for most of the season. That guy did not transfer in the window. Miami just said, screw it, come on down. And that was the beginning of it. Salty, will the NCAA stand and fight the first court challenge, and will it win? Depends on the challenge. I don't know what will be argued and when, and depending on the court. Is it federal? Is it state? All those things matter. Salty, have you ever tried birthday cake 5-hour energy? How is it? I haven't tried that one. That I couldn't tell you. I'm a pretty basic guy. I like blue raspberry. I'll talk about that a little bit. Blue raspberry is definitely my flavor. I want to see a tampering probation, one that hurts, loss of 15 scholarships, $500K fine, and coaching suspensions. That's what Katie says. Katie, actually, they do it a little different in their proposal that I talked about. Again, take it for what it's worth. They're saying 5 scholarships. Coach sits out 6 games. That's a lot. And the fine is 20%, which is a hell of a lot more than $500K. For those P4 schools, which those are the ones that it's going to happen with, you would be talking about a fine in the millions. So it's even higher up the ladder than what Katie's talking about. That is what Xavier Lucas did when Wisconsin would not release him. Yet he just basically unenrolled and enrolled elsewhere. Katie, I have a feeling there's a head coach out there losing players that are pushing it. I'll bet I'll be impressed more when they slay the tampering monster. By the way, I just want to throw this out. This is another rabbit hole, but I think the same stuff that's going on right here, I don't know exactly how they prove it, but to induce players even during the portal window, these same things are eventually going to be used. Now, how you prove and what they've got to assign it, like maybe they make coaches say at the drop of a hat, if we call you and we want your phone records, if you don't send them within 30 seconds, basically, you get hammered because we know you're contacting these players because the player admitted it or the agent, whatever. I think this stuff is in some way should maybe not the exact same penalties, but something of this ilk will be applied for tampering. If they're going to go to this step, that's the logical next place to go. Nancy Wall 2213. I also went to NCAA across all sports to prohibit refill of championship or regional all season tickets until the month. Real fans are getting priced out, especially long-time retired fans, 100%. So what Nancy's talking about here, prohibit refill of championship or regional all session tickets until the month. What she's saying is, like, I know this from my buddy. I won't go into specifics, but his team that he rooted for, he had season tickets. And if you applied for the bowl game, just using this as an example, the tickets are ridiculous. They always charged you up front for the Rose Bowl because it was the most expensive, even though the team he was rooting for was never going to go to the Rose Bowl. Never going to go. They wanted your money for as long as possible. They would invest that money. They were using you like a bank for free interest. What Nancy's talking about is complete crap. It is ridiculous, and I'm totally on her side. These schools are raping people, and it's why a lot of people are saying, screw you guys. we're not going to the games anymore. You don't want to give us a decent deal on these seat licenses, which are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 at some schools. Bye-bye. Salty. Can agents who act as middlemen for such activities be barred from the area of business for a period of time or otherwise be penalized? They never seem to get the spotlight. I don't know. That gets into state laws. That gets real touchy, and it depends on who wants to enforce them. Because here's the problem. I'm not going to name specifics, but there are a handful of people that I know that like they run gyms or whatever, and they've gotten into the NIL, and they're good people. And in like the same state or states, they're the same people in terms of what they do, although different people themselves, and they're awful. They won't promote the kid going to school X unless that school pays them on the side. Just straight up con men. But if you hammer one of these guys, they still have influence in their communities. And if they have influences at specific schools, your state, it's really touchy. There is no all across the board good way to fix that. Once these people get entrenched at a high school, sometimes they're a high school coach too. It's a problem. South Florida's full of it. Orlando, Tampa, everybody's got somebody. And again, sometimes it's a really good dude. Sometimes it's a really bad guy. I know both. How you deal with that is very touchy, and some of the people behind the scenes need to figure that out case by case. Katie, the slime oozing from the Miami program since Mario arrived makes Nevin Shapiro look like a saint. That's hilarious. Hogbone, finally, they are trying to. Talking about the NCAA. Yes, that is true. At least you're applying yourself. Is it going to be perfect? No, it may take time, all that, but at least they're trying. Salty, transferring and having to sit out a year should actually help with someone's academics, not hurt. The Miami guy has to know this. That's true. You're not focused on football. You're focused on actually going to class. Katie, Miami portal players don't go to class anyway. That crockpot is coming from that Heitner Shyster lawyer. Yeah, that's Heitner is his name. He's interesting. Katie, my mom and I had our regular seats for the Natty game that we had with our season ticket package. That's pretty interesting. My question to you is, and I don't know if you pay attention to this or how you guys pay for Miami tickets. When it comes to the bowl season, the way they used to do it at some of the other schools, and I don't know Miami's, do they say, well, here's your bowl options. You have to pay for this tier way in advance, and it's always going to be like the Rose Bowl or whatever. That's what they used to do, and you would send it out, like you'd get it October, September, whatever it is, maybe in the summer. They want your money now, or you're not on the list. So they could keep your money that whole time, and they knew it wasn't going to be that bowl. And then they would give you the difference back later. But again, they're using your money, investing it, doing whatever they want in the meantime. It's BS. That's my question to you. So it is a really weird scenario. When we come back, we're going to talk about how the NCAA did well with this. Are there any other pitfalls? It's still possible. And I want you to contribute. Do you think there's something the NCAA still should have done based on this right here? I'll put this back up for a second. The 3 tiers that have been talked about, at least publicly, the school getting fined 20%, head coach losing all football ability and basically recruiting, team meetings, everything, 6 games, and then 5 scholarships taken away off the roster the next year. Is there anything else they should have done? Let's talk about that next, right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. All the buzzer beaters, bracket buster, and all those unforgettable moments, conference championship games, like Duke, Carolina, teams going against each other like Michigan, Michigan State, all these things to help secure it. It's about to happen. And the next day talking about it's awesome, but it's even better. It's even better to get those tickets to go to those games. Like Michigan, Michigan State this year would be awesome. But the long queues, the prices jumping around, all that, it's not easy. In Game Time, the Game Time app helps you take care of it. I've done it twice this year. It's awesome. Tickets are guaranteed. You can get in and out in 5 minutes. You can see your seat view right from your phone. It's simple with Game Time. They even got zone deals. So within an area, you get a great price just to sit in a certain section of the arena. Make sure you check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. We're also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. This one is a little bit different. 5 Hour Energy has expanded its realm into some new flavors, and it's the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft. 18 different flavors to be exact, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, Cotton Candy. There is something from everyone. But again, as I noted earlier when I was talking, I'm a blue raspberry guy. There's Peach Mango is another one I really like. Cotton Candy's a pretty interesting one as well. It's going to have some sugary, sweet, fruity flavors with a little bit of hint of vanilla. That's another one I'm kind of curious about. But I'm a blue raspberry guy. That's who I think should win the entire thing. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com. Or at Amazon. All right, did the NCAA get it right? Is there anything you want to add? Do you think that they did a terrible job? Whatever it is that you think, comment down below. I don't think that they at least started poorly. Remember, this is a proposal. I probably should have stipulated that more times earlier on in the show. It's the first steps. I know I mentioned it, but to be clear and concise, it's still got to pass a vote, which is expected to. Again, just to put it up there so you can read it for those of you on YouTube now or later, and I'll read this again. The head coach would be under the 3 primary penalties here. Prohibited from all football, recruiting, and on-field coaching and administrative duties, team meetings through the 6th contest of the season. That's a big whammy. The school would be fined an additional 20% of its football budget. And finally, the school would be required to reduce the number of roster spots by 5 for the next season, regardless of the head coach's employment status at the school. Anything you would like to add to that, and why? Is there something else that you think on the other side the Warriors might take a shot at? Those are some fun things to discuss. I think overall, from a proposal standpoint, it's pretty good. And again, it's aggressive. I like the fact that they didn't jack around and they went after him. Salty, I think the proposed penalties are just fine for a first effort. They are substantial. I suppose you could include either the position coach or the GM as well if you want to add more bite. That's a pretty good point. If there's somebody that's always the one doing this, there needs to be something on their career resume, if you will, from the NCAA side of things, kind of like a show clause. If you do this once, you go somewhere else, that's one thing. But you got to, hey, just so you know, he was in there. Let's see what happens. Katie, to hear Alex Dono tell it, Heidner is the second coming of F. Lee Bailey. I don't know what's going to happen there, but Dono is not a fool. He knows that Dono's a good friend of mine. He knows Miami and a lot of other schools are trying to get people to come over. Katie, it's a great start and can lead to more bold initiatives. That's also a good point. There has to be, number one, a starting point for just anything that you do. When was the last time the NCAA went out on a limb to do anything? They've been passive. They have been just waiting for something to happen and they go along with it instead of being the governing body. So that's great. I think that's really, really important. I don't know if anybody, it is really important because I don't know if anybody understands just how hard it is to look at the NCAA now compared to when I was a kid. They used to hammer people. They used to really go after them. I don't know, maybe it goes all the way back to the Jerry Tarkanian case when he sued the NCAA because they went after him so much. He was cheating a lot, but it is what it is. I don't think the NCAA is worried about anything other than being sued as long as they collect a check. This proves there might be some new thoughts. And while it's still helping their own interest to a certain degree, the games would still go on if they allowed the shadow portal. So it's better than what it was. So with that, I appreciate everybody stopping in. Thank you very much for checking out the Portal Podcast. This is a topic that we're probably going to talk about in some capacity every week, maybe even multiple times, depending on who tries to challenge this and how. If a school or a conference or a governor or whatever, if a politician gets involved, that's coming. So think about that for the next time we have a live show. I won't be here tomorrow. I'm going to be on the road heading to Atlanta for the Big Sevens tournament. I work with Coastline 7-on-7. Look for some shorts and videos and all kinds of different stuff. It'll be fun. It's a lot of drama with all these kids, and I love going to them. So I'll have a lot of reports and stuff over the next week or so as well. But thank you once again. See you, Salty. I appreciate you stopping in again, as always, my friend. We will see you soon right here on the Portal Podcast.